Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for being here. I am Kendra Tanner. I am the creator and founder of the True You Project, and I wanted to come here today and share with you something that has recently shown a lot of light onto my understanding of my own relationship with food, and I thought it could do the same for you. So, if you're familiar with the True You Project, you know that it basically started out of my own journey with a recovery from an eating disorder. And so, what I'm sharing is a lot of it is based on my own experience over the time of my own recovery. And the more recently, I'm also feel so grateful and so excited to be able to integrate in things that I'm learning from the perspective of trauma recovery. About a year ago, 18 months ago, I started looking into this a little bit more because there was so much in client work that was coming up about traumas that they had had. And it just, the more I started to kind of prepare myself to equip myself to how would I respond to those situations, the more it just was intriguing me. And so I started undertaking a very introductory level course to understand trauma recovery from a somatic perspective, sort of similar to the work that Peter Levine does with somatic experiencing. And so, what I want to share with you today is something that has totally rocked my world and hopefully can help you have another tool in your toolkit of how you view your own relationship with food and other things in life that can help you essentially de-stress and stabilize so that when you're using food as an answer to your stresses, you may have other options, and also to turn down the dial of the stress in the meantime. So let me explain some more. So I want to introduce this idea of resourcing to you. So this is a semi-technical, jargony word, and I don't love using them, but we're going to go with it today. And so this idea of a resource, in my own words, is anything that can take you from this feeling of frazzled to this state of flow, as if you're like floating down a river. So consider going from frazzled to float. So if you just ask yourself for a minute, maybe just think of a time recently where you felt frazzled, and then start to ask yourself, what did you do next? How did you respond? How did you take care of yourself in that frazzled state? I'll give you an example because this is a combination of what's happened to me and what has happened to a lot of the clients I work with. This idea of getting lost. Like, so driving in a car and not knowing, all of a sudden realizing like you're totally off the beaten track, and what do you do? So we basically call that a stressful situation that might send you into a frazzled state, right? This has happened to me in the wilderness of Idaho. This has happened to clients as they're trying to come find me in like the sticks in West Wales, right? Like this happens in life. Like the GPS, the other day, I was trying to go somewhere and the GPS is taking you on like a circle and you're like, wait a second, I've been here before, what's going on, right? And so that can call that situation a place of uncertainty. You might feel vulnerable, right? And all of your safety constructs have been taken away because you might have been relying on the GPS, you might have been relying on your navigator, all these other things to get you from A to B, that certainty that you're going to get from A to B, and all of a sudden that's taken away. And so the question is, how do you respond? My guess is there's probably one of three responses because we're all human and we're all mammals and we all respond with a fear response, right? So to basically understand what might be going on for you, if you think of fear responses as one of three things, you could have a fight response, a flight or runaway response, and a freeze response, which I also think is similar to a numb. So fight, I liken to control. The flight, the runaway, is similar to comforting ourselves, and the freeze similar to numbing. So just think for a second how that might match up with food behaviors. So a control response when it comes to food, what I often see either looks like restricting or a very rule-based diet of what you can and can't eat. Okay? A comfort response for food can look like sort of binging, right? Just like eat, just put something in my mouth, put something in my stomach, anything to make me feel better. Numb can kind of be an either or and, right? It's like anything to kind of disconnect from the feeling. So if control is going to give you that, then you might go for that. If eating something is going to help you sort of numb out and not feel, then you might go for that. If not eating is going to help you numb out, you might choose that option, right? And understand that your particular response may be a combination of one or all three of those, but that's typically the pattern that I'll see, right? We're having a controlling and restricting, or we're having a comforting, or just like a numbing and freezing and not knowing what to do in that situation. So if you think, I've had the situation where this has happened for a number of dear women that I've worked with, but they'll say to me, I was in my car and I didn't know where I was anymore. I got lost and all I wanted to do was eat. And so I just found the nearest gas station and bought some chocolate and ate it just so I can calm myself down, right? And I've been in situations where, and one, I could totally relate to that. And two, I've been in situations where I've actually seen, so call that the sort of the comfort response, right? Another situation, maybe you get really angry at first and you're trying to like, I'm just going to plow through and I can't believe this and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But then your stress levels are so high that even after you have that initial outburst or that initial adrenaline rush to push through and get to the place of safety, you then may still need food to kind of help and calm down. Okay? So just have a think for yourself. It doesn't have to be getting lost in a car, but any stressful situation, what is your default response? Or you may have many default responses. And how do you see your relationship with food sort of mirroring that pattern? So let's bring this idea of resourcing back in. So what made me think of this the other day is the sun. It's been sunny here in Wales for like a good 4 to 6 weeks, and I am not complaining. And the reason I'm not complaining is because the sun for me is a resource. The sun is something that helps me relax. It helps me feel connected to my body. It helps me slow down in my life. It brings an element of joy. It makes me feel cared for, right? And I can expand a little bit. When I'm cold, I shrink and I have to tense up. And so when I'm warm, I can be a lot more relaxed. I can wear clothes that I enjoy wearing, all this kind of stuff. So for me, the sun is a resource. It helps me go from frazzled to float. So ask yourself this, what might a resource be for you? It could be the sun. It could be something like music. It could be something like looking at flowers and plants or gardening. It could be dance. It could be yoga. It could be, I think I mentioned music, basically anything, a creative practice. Maybe it's making some art, playing with kids, animals, all these things. The list is endless and there's no right or wrong here. It's just you having the chance to think about what helps me calm down, relax, and go from frazzled to float. So yeah, the sun was out and I was realizing, wow, I'm a different person when the sun is out, right? And so if I had this awareness of what was a resource for me back in the day, I could have helped myself in one of two ways or both ways. So one is that in the situation where you're totally stressed out and where you're totally getting frazzled, food can often become a resource. And this is something that I realized for me. Right? Food was a resource for me in so many ways because it was that thing that got me from frazzled to float. It was that thing that brought about the control or the comfort and the numb. But as we know, it's not sustainable. You don't want it to be that forever because it can take you down a really disordered spiral with eating. However, if I had other resources at my fingertips, I would have been in a position perhaps of having choice. And so if I was feeling stressed at work and instead of eating my way through typing up emails, if I had the awareness that the sun was a resource or fresh air or walking into a shop with beautiful objects, that could help center and ground me, it would have given me the choice to say you can get up from your desk, you can go outside and you can go take 5 or 10 minutes to resource yourself and then come back to the email. And perhaps then I wouldn't have eaten as much as I did to get myself through the workday. Okay, so that's one way that you can basically start to substitute, right? When you're using food as a resource, you can then choose another resource that you have in your bank of resources. The second thing that can happen is that on any given day, whether or not you're feeling frazzled or not, do more of the things that you love and bring you joy. Do more of the things that make you feel expanded and calm and relaxed. And this is seriously to like start building up your bank. Because if you think about it, if you are operating on a normal day, you're operating on an 8 out of 10 in terms of frazzledness, right? And then something happens and like, pardon my French, but shit hits the fan. You're already at an 8. And now if something else happens, you're up to 9 or 10. Like chances are you're going to go for the food, right? There's like your brain is going to circumvent any kind of logic to help you choose differently. It's just going to be a knee-jerk reaction because you're in like survival mode. However, if you've been taking really good care of yourself and life is going to throw curveballs at you, and as those curveballs are being thrown, you also have the awareness that the choice to say, I'm going to take an extra 10 minutes in the bath. I'm going to read my book. I'm going to listen to my music. I'm going to do the things that resource me. People call it self-care, right? And now we know why this is important because it helps actually calm your system down neurologically. I'm not going to get into that. Then now instead of operating at an 8 out of 10, maybe you're operating at a 5 out of 10 or a 4 or a 6. And so when something happens and the shit hits the fan again, you have more of you available to make those choices, whether or not that resource is available in the moment. Okay? Because let's face it, like we're not always in control of when the sun comes out, and we don't always have all the things that we're doing at our fingertips. And, you know, if you're in the wilderness lost and you can't find your way out, unless your car is stacked with like every single of your favorite things, my car's normally stacked with food and that's about it. So if that's your only option, that's where you're going to go to. You don't always have those things that could be more sustainable options for you at your fingertips. But if you're caring for yourself all along the way, chances are then when things are going to get crazy, like I said, your system isn't as highly elevated. You can take those few minutes, pause, take a breath, and then choose something that's going to be more sustainable for you as opposed to going into that fight or flight or freeze mode with food. So that is my encouragement for you today, to take some time to really get to know yourself and what helps you float through life. What is a resource for you? What keeps you calm and relaxed? What do you need to do more of and make more time in your life for those things, even if it means saying no to appointments or obligations or commitments that you've stacked your calendar with and gotten really busy? Because if you're like me, that's how I operated. There was no downtime and alone time for me. But now I realize the importance of that, and it comes again back to that idea of resourcing. Okay, so that's your homework. If you want some homework and takeaways from today, is to just think about what is your reaction to stress? Do you fight it? Do you flight it? Do you freeze? And how does food fit into that picture? And what are some ways you can resource yourself so that you can choose differently? Okay, lots of love. Bye.